200,000-300,000 was a great game for our crew at that setting. But then you get really used to playing it on 10 and you dial it back to 5 and you're Superman. So I'm wondering if any of these guys do that. Let's see. I've got to look at the chat and see if there are any questions from anybody. I would love to answer any questions if anybody has it. And somebody's commented, Greg used to train at 10 a few times. Hard to ask questions about arcade games like this, as most of the tips and tricks were kept secret. I'm not sure that's so true. One thing is these games flourished before there was an internet. So the sharing of information wasn't as prevalent as it is today. But I think there was an underground player community, and they found tips and secrets, and it did somehow spread. I think we used carrier pigeon when we found a new trick. We tie it to a pigeon and send it out to the rest of the community. Which reminds me, when I was on with Eugene earlier, somebody asked about our how we got started with computers, how we got started into programming and into games. And Eugene got a chance to answer, and I think we lost our Skype connection, and then I lost Eugene, and then I decided that lunch was a good idea at the time. Hang on a moment, I'm sorry. Scrolling by. What's the story on the decision on the title 2084 Robotron? Okay. We'll come back to programming and answer the question. I tried to post a URL where I actually had the marquee from the original 2084 game. And Eugene named the game 2084, and Steve Ritchie, as Mark Hoff mentioned, is the person that coined the Robotron name. And Steve was on us, really, and Steve doesn't keep his opinions to himself. Steve he's a very forceful guy, and he picked the name Robotron. He loved it. He was all over us. 2084 is stupid, and so we ended up making it 2084 and then kind of a subtitle Robotron, and that was the production name of the game until the last minute. So marquees were made up, and I actually uploaded a picture to a marquee, and unfortunately, the Moobot in this chat room wouldn't, it killed my message saying no URLs. I then typed a cryptic version that I thought would fool Moobot, and that ended up not appearing in the scroll. So it is at files.ledgaming.com/files/2084-marquee.jpg. So that's files.ledgaming.com/files/2084-marquee.jpg. First one who can type it in and get the marquee up, let me know that I said it right and that worked. So as someone, there is this group that the people who are dialed into Defender and Robotron and some of the other Williams games that Mark Hoff created on Facebook. It's called Williams Defender Players Unite. It is a private group on Facebook. You'll have to submit, a request to join the group, and Mark Hoff administers the group and will let people that are part of this community in. I've posted the picture of the marquee there. And again, if that URL that I chatted off works for anybody, just let me know, and you guys can see it there, and maybe we can get the Twin Galaxy guys to post it or put it up or add it to the artwork in the frame. That would kind of look neat. So the marquee was made, and the ROM labels, as somebody in the chat pointed out, actually, most of the ROM labels, I think, say 2084, not Robotron. And it was going out as 2084, you know, colon small Robotron. And Steve Ritchie was really just on a rampage. You guys are blowing it. Who wants to call a game 2084? Who can remember? Who can say it? Who can whatever? And internally, everybody started calling it Robotron. And it's really exciting when a new game gets finished and we're getting ready to build prototypes and put them on test. And so just we're talking about, you know, the game, this, Robotron, that, and nobody's calling it 2084. And at some point, I think Eugene made the call, you know, let's make the change. And there's a bunch of money that had to be spent to redo the artwork and get new marquees printed. But that left me with a really nice collector's item with my 2084 marquee. And the rest is history. It became Robotron from there. I can repeat the URL. It looks like somebody missed it. Let's try it again. files.ledgaming.com/files/2084-marquee marquee.jpg. So first one to get that up there, let me know that it really worked. Yeah, there's Moobot's yelling at somebody else who tried to post it. Okay, thank you, Moobot. I'm really happy you're here. There's a question about power-ups, and it was, you know, power-ups are really standard in games now. They were just occurring, you know, on the edge. I'm trying to think of a game before Robotron that had them. There probably was. It was a pretty new thing, but it wasn't in our playbook at the time. And Robotron was done on a really compressed schedule. I think Eugene figured the whole thing start to finish was 6 months, which is pretty fast. I've gone on in these discussions about how our tools were so crude that we were able to do so little work in any given unit at a time. And that was also with hardware that didn't work so well, and we were bringing up the blitter chips that were in Robotron, which were really a first. Those were being brought up on wire wrap boards that were buggy as hell, and so, you know, getting all of the gameplay, the enemies, the interaction, the pacing, the balance, getting that all in, really, you know, it was critical, and putting in other gimmicky features, which, you know, given you know what I see and what we've seen over time, I'm grateful that we didn't go with gimmicky features, because I think that it takes away some of the pureness and some of the balance of the game. And you live for, you know, the game gets built around the gimmicks, and you live for the gimmicks when you build gimmicks into a game. I'm just trying to read some of the scroll again to see if there's something else that I can address. Nice comment on Defender. Did I play much Robotron? The answer is yes. And I told a story about this earlier that really puts it in perspective. I played the hell out of the game, and I played every day, and I worked my way up at difficulty 5 to the point where I got 1 million 2 or 3 or 4 times. And that's not that that my ability wasn't good enough to play to 1 million. My ability, you know, my typical game would end at maybe 300, 400, 500,000. And then, you know, on your best day, when you're having the luck of David Gomez's first hour as opposed to his third hour, things go right. You get some extra men, you survive some extra waves, and I worked my way up to where I broke 1 million a couple of times, and that kind of became a goal. And, you know, these guys are getting 1 million every 12 minutes, which really doesn't do justice to the feat. And for those of you that have played the game, either had your asses kicked by it or that have worked their way up, you can appreciate that getting the skill to get to 1 million is pretty significant, or at least it was in 1982. So I played like crazy. I hit the 1 million 2 or 3 times, and that was probably probably took me 6 months, 8 months to do that. So I was playing every day in that time window. And shortly after I hit a couple millions, you know, that was kind of my goal. And so I kind of moved on to other things. But I love the game. I still love playing it now, and am sort of inspired to, you know, blow the dust off the game and you know, get myself back into playing shape after getting involved with all this and watching this. This has been really fun. Was Berserk an inspiration to Robotron? Absolutely. Eugene and I, we loved playing Berserk. Al McNeil designed that game for Stern. It was a really, really great game, which again had just a very simple set of items and gameplay mechanisms, but was staged to just be very challenging and very interesting, and a lot of strategy to playing it. Eugene and I both loved the game, and I think that an interesting thing about Berserk is it had this newly designed reflective optical joystick, and it was an insane design. It had under the joystick. I don't know if you can see my hands here, but under the joystick, the stick came down on a cone shape that was wide side down, and the stick would move the cone, and the cone was reflective, and there were optics that were reflected off the cone to see if one of the 4 directions was being hit, and it was as accurate as a Wicco stick is for Robotron. These Berserk sticks were remarkably inaccurate, and the game was tuned perfectly to that horrible joystick. So it was balanced and a great challenge with kind of a mediocre control. The guys at lunch today were telling me about a new game called I Am Bread that is going on. I think it's a mobile game. I'm not positive, but oh no, they were playing it on a console maybe. I was watching a video, but it's an interesting game in the sense that it gives you a very simple goal and a very awful control, and so there's kind of a similarity there between what we experienced on Berserk. And I'm not taking anything away from it. Like I said, Al designed the game, you know, on that platform with that bad control and balanced it perfectly. I suspect if you put a really accurate joystick on Berserk, that it would get a lot easier and might not be a lot of fun. But Eugene and I, we loved the game. We played the hell out of it. We were a little frustrated with the control and felt that, you know, boy, could you imagine playing this game, you know, with a whole bunch of firepower. And so when Robotron was created, the moving and firing that you see in the game today is almost identical to what it was on day one. And on day one, there were, you know, 5 robots, and, you know, it was just like no contest. So like, let's put out 10. And we're sitting there at the computer and we're typing in, you know, okay, 25, okay, 30, okay, 50. And when we got to about 90, that's about the equivalent of what happens in the waves that end in 9 with the black borders. All of a sudden, it was just putting 90 guys out there and seeing what you could do with them. Right at the beginning of the design was like holy crap, this is amazing, and we just had the best time on a 1-week-old game, just putting 90 guys on the screen and trying to run for your life and shoot and get out of it. And so that's kind of the connection. There was another game on the Commodore PET that Eugene had played that I never saw, and I can't remember the name of it, but if you Google his articles, it's in there. But it was a ASCII character-based game. So you're looking at you were looking at you were a little text character, or maybe it might have been a graphic image, but it was in a text character box on a computer that only displayed text. And there were these robots that would try and approach you using the same algorithm the grunts used, and there were electrodes, and you tried to steer the robots into the electrodes. It was more, you were much different than it ended up in Robotron. But you were trying to move around on the screen and drive all the robots into the electrodes. I don't even think you shot in this game. I think you just moved and they tracked your movement and you tried to steer them into the electrodes. And so, starting with this new control, and the control was pioneered on this game, and there's nothing like it. And it really is the reason that people can do the kinds of things that these guys are doing. You have so much control to move and fire independently. Your brain gets wired to it, and if you're these four guys who are amazing us, your brain really gets wired to it. Markov was on earlier. His comments were amazing. He's an awesome speaker. I was very, very thrilled to hear all of his insightful comments and just talking about the whole, the way your brain kind of gets in step with the game to do what these guys are doing. So that's a little bit of the background of Berserk and this Commodore PET game, and just a really interesting. I've never seen a game, and we've interviewed on Defender a lot. Defender was the exact opposite. Defender was 90% finished and was no fun. And Robotron was amazing fun in its first week. And I've never seen another game that came out like that. That was like, wow, this is great. And we were taking turns. Come on, my turn. When Defender was being developed, it's like, do I have to have another turn? So it was interesting. Wait, Larry, you said the robots grunt at players. They had voice activity. I hope that's a joke. Geometry Wars, I remember. I recognize the name. I don't remember the game from when I saw it or where it was or what it was. And the Bader and the asteroid saucer, there is a connection there, not graphically, although they're both saucers. Boy, it's hard to read a name. Virtual Gas, it's hard to read your name when it's in green, that light green. We'll come back to the saucer. Do mom and dad have first names? No, they don't. Okay, on to the saucer. But Eugene's second child, Eugene, right around the time Robotron was done, Eugene had a daughter, and a year or two later had a son whose name is Michael. And I don't know which inspired which, but there's definitely a connection there in the name of Mikey. Back to Asteroids and the Bader. Asteroids might have been 2 years ahead of Defender. It was certainly a year ahead of Defender. And when we were developing Defender, we had an Asteroids, a Galaxian, and a Starfire. Those were the three games that were in our lab. And when we weren't working on Defender, we were playing a lot of those three games. I was never good on Asteroids, but a lot of people, are great at that game. And Asteroids had it had the big ship and the little ship that would fly through and shoot at you, and the little ship was worth 1,000 points and was pretty accurate. In playing the game in the lab and playing Asteroids, we got to calling the little guy the bastard. So, you're shooting and some players would get down to one little rock and leave the one little rock and then just shoot the 1,000-point ships, which in the original version of Asteroids, you could get the skill to live forever, run up quite a score, get lots of free ships, and that the methodology or the act of doing this became known as baiting the bastard, or bastard baiting, of course, which is where the name for the baiter came from. When Defender was developed, we needed to have a bastard, right? We needed to have something, the equivalent of Evilado or the bastard, or something that if you're hanging around and not finishing up and moving on, it puts the pressure on you. A lot of games have that. So the baiter was created, and just like the name Robotron was being used for Robotron, from the baiting the bastard and whatever, people just started calling it a baiter. It wasn't officially named by the development team. It was just, oh, here comes the baiter, here comes the baiter. And so it became the baiter. The function is the same, the image is unrelated, even though they're both saucers, and it got its name from that. Do you feel satisfied to know that younger gamers are becoming interested with Robotron? Satisfied is an understatement. It is really awesome. We've always believed in the game and the balance and the quality. We've loved the following, and the fact that younger people can recognize it is gratifying. I was talking earlier about the modern games, which do all these simulations, and they're almost all in 3D. And there's so much effort to get everything to look right, and to get a world together, and to get all the elements of the world together, that much less time and effort proportionately is spent on developing a great game. And Eugene and I offline, Eugene added, because Eugene, as most of you know, he has been developing video games and runs Raw Thrills and has developed video games in every decade since Robotron. And his point was that and we saw this when we did a game called Blaster. We saw it for the first time. When you're in 3D, you don't have the playing field to make as interesting a game, because you're looking out from your eyes, and the stuff that's really close to you is really big, and everything else is so little, you really can't interact with it. It works beautifully in driving games. And then in other games, like Doom, first-person shooters, it works, but you don't have the level of strategic gameplay that you do where you can see lots of elements of a playing field like you can in Robotron or Defender for that matter. So it's neat, and I bring this up in the context of the question because the younger players, graphics and the black screen, there's no question there's a really great game there, and there's no reason that they shouldn't get enticed with playing it from a few games and get into the challenges as much as anybody else. It's all really timeless. Thank you for the thank you. Oh man, Blaster, yep. Somebody's probably having thoughts like, oh, it's a Lawnmower Man. We were talking this morning. You're probably thinking like, oh God, why'd you do that game? We learned a lot from doing Blaster, and it has its own minor merit, but it was not commercially really successful, and it's again, there wasn't a lot of 3D at the time. Star Wars came out, and it was a good game, but again, not a great game. And we learned it was our first lesson about what you can and can't do in 3D, and again, 3D, first-person 3D really ties your hands at weaving an interesting game together. Modern 2D Robotron, that would be interesting. Okay. Faster Macer. I'm mangling your name, but you're asking about did we play pinballs? I actually departed from video almost completely from about 1984 on, and I moved into the pinball side of Williams from 84 till 99 when they closed down the pinball division. And so I did a lot of OS development, a lot of game development, worked on a lot of great games with a lot of great designers. And pinball is near and dear to my heart. And I have since I put Robotron down in 82, 83, I've played a lot more pinball than any video game. So that's it. Someone's asking about thoughts on vector games like Tempest and Star Wars. Vector was a technology that enabled the developers to do stuff in 3D in an era when the computer and hardware technology really wasn't well suited for it. Blaster is a great example. I mean, Blaster is a really mediocre looking game that used lots of tricks to make giant raster images and make them move around in 3 space. Vector was perfectly suited for it, and that's where it really shined in games like Battlezone and Tempest. You can't forget Asteroids, which was 2D, and certainly could have been done as a raster game. But Asteroids, absolute legendary classic game. What is the game you're most proud of? Well, that's a great question. Thank you for asking it. God, there's so many. There are so many for different reasons. I mean, Robotron is way up there just because of the balance. One thing as a game developer, whether you're developing video games, pinball machines, slot machines, they all are gonna sink or swim on the balance. Are the different elements laid out appropriately? Is the risk reward appropriate? Are there different strategies that work? Either different approaches that can be successful, or even different times in the game where you want to do this strategy because the game's going like this, and that strategy because the game's going like that. Robotron is as well balanced as a game gets, and so I am amazingly proud of that. I'll pick one pinball machine. I think it has to be Adam's Family that I'm most proud of. Although probably Funhouse is a more favorite game for me to play. Right now, I had 22 pinball machines in my basement. I am in a smaller house that has room for 3. Those 3 are Adam's Family, Funhouse, and World Cup. And I embrace those 3 for different reasons. And then in my slot machine life, multi-strike poker has been just a success beyond belief that again I'm really proud of. So I won't to ramble on more about that, but Black Widow, where the game was like Robotron. I remember playing Black Widow briefly, and it had the Robotron controls. I don't remember much more about the game, but you are making me remember a really interesting limited run Atari game called Quantum. I don't know if anybody remembers Quantum, but Quantum, it was a vector game. Your character had a little trail that it left, and if you raced it in a circle and circled the enemy, that would destroy the enemy. And it was totally unique, revolutionary gameplay. It was not, again, it was during, probably came out in '83 when video games were starting to crash and burn. But that was just a neat game that I always remember in the thing. Any future plans to show off your collection on YouTube? Okay, I haven't done that, and that's a great question. I've never thought of it. I tend to be generally private. Before the internet took away as much of it as it could, I actually tried to fly under the radar. If you look at the credits on the pinball machines, for example, the entire design team puts their names on the game, and I would only put my initials. And back before the internet, that did a great job of sort of keeping me disconnected publicly with the products, but still I could, I put my initials on so that I would, take credit for what I did. I've made a lot of adjustments, both in the sense that I can't keep private, so let's be part of this community, and it's been very rewarding to step in and do that. Boy, senior moment. I had another thing to connect that to. I was also pointing out earlier, we were the vid kids. We were in our 20s when we did Robotron. Eugene had his 60th birthday 3 days ago. I'm the young guy on the team. I'm catching up to him, but he seems to always keep a lead. So as far as throwing my collection on YouTube, I'll consider it. I mean, it's something that probably would be fun, and I'll have to do that. That's a good question. Thank you. Duramold cabinets. Yes, Blaster was in a Duramold cabinet. It was a bad game in a bad cabinet. Let's move on. Okay, I need more questions, guys, or I'm going to have to start rambling something else. Smash TV. Okay, thank you for the question. One more, you're just in time. I appreciate it. There's a guy named Mark Turmel who is a great designer. He is best known for NBA Jam. NBA Jam was his baby at Midway, and I think he did the NFL games too. He must have. Not positive, but I think he did. Very interesting guy, a little bit of a character. And it's funny because I'm looking at my picture on the screen and it keeps moving left, so I keep moving right, and I'm not realizing that all I have to do is center myself to the camera. And that Skype is mirroring my image to fool me. Or maybe it's not. Yeah, it's not mirroring my image, which is what's fooling me. So Mark came in to Williams. He had, as a very young kid, he did an Apple II game called Turmoil, and which is kind of a play on his last name, Trammell. He came in just amazing enthusiasm, and he thought that Robotron is the best game that ever existed on the planet, and I think I think it was really interesting. He was a bit of a Eugene fanboy, and came in to work for Eugene, who was running the video group at that time. Again, I was upstairs in the pinball department while in this time frame, and Mark, wanted to do a Robotron-like game, use that control, and then give it a bit of a story and give it a progression. And I think he did a great job of it. I think the game really wasn't finished. I think it got a little hurried and rushed out, and it could have been better. And then Total Carnage was the follow-up to that, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that was the Mark's follow-up game that again was like a sequel, and it was really a great game. Smash TV really loops back to the pureness of Robotron. That was asked. Somebody asked earlier, how come we didn't put power-ups in Robotron? And the deal there is Smash TV is Robotron with progressions, different rooms, different configurations, and all kinds of different power-ups. And we're way down the road on both games, and Robotron. Thank you for the Total Carnage acknowledgement. Robotron, really remains sort of a classic because of its purity. And I don't think anyone cares about Smash TV or Total Carnage, or certainly not with the level. And that's kind of what happens when you start to add the gimmicks. The game becomes more about the gimmicks than the game, and you're measuring your progression. And have I seen all the rooms? And okay, I've seen everything. I played everything. I'm done. It was kind of like me hitting 1 million on Robotron. Okay, I hit my objective. Time to move on. So that's kind of how I feel. I've got about 20 more minutes, and I'm going to try and hang here for that time. I'm going to get a glass of water. All this talking is really drying my throat. So talk amongst yourselves. I'll be back. I'm back. Hopefully all is good. When I got coffee this morning at the office, Mark said, "Why don't you get your Robotron Gauntlet coffee mug that he so nicely sent me?" And let's see if I have feedback on this. There it is. Okay. Yeah, it's appearing backwards. See, it is inverting. Shame on you, Skype. Anyhow, this is, Mark sent me this cool mug, and said to me when I was in the office, why are you drinking coffee? Why didn't you use your Robotron mug? And the answer is it was at home. So I switched my Defender mug there, but now I can have my water in my Robotron mug. Is this worthwhile? Are people is this worth my doing, or is it boring, snooze fest, who cares? Let me know in the chat, because without any love, I think I'll go find something else to do. But if this is worthwhile, I will do it. at least for another 15 minutes, and then I gotta go for a while. Love the stories. Yay, hooray. Oh, there's really people listening. At least 4 people listening. Cool. 46 people, and I wonder if there's really 46 people. Robotron and Black Knight, how nice. A typical day back in the 80s, that's a great question, because a typical day in the 80s for a driven programmer lasted anywhere from 16 to 30 hours. Literally, we were up against bad development tools. Okay, we had the best that was available. We actually, for Robotron, Eugene and I created a bunch of new tools between Stargate and Robotron to make life a little easier, but it was still the amount of time and effort to make a tweak and turn something in a game and track down a bug and hunt down a bug took so long that we were spending 100 hours a week typically working on the games, because that's what it took to have significant progress in a meaningful way. Much more so in the 80s than anyone does now is the amount of time we played the games, both pinball machines and video games. As we went into the 90s and 2000, people developing video games, became these giant teams where different people were doing little different parts of it. But the games got very big, and so, there wasn't a lot of meaningful play. It just took too long. You play Robotron, by the time you hit the 10th wave, you've done almost every trick that's in the game. And compared to a game like Smash TV, where, if you're playing the game, well, you're playing one little part of it and refining it. So you don't really get the experience of playing the game. And we were playing these games. We would play them competitively, okay, with a lot of passion and a lot of really wanting to beat the crap out of our buddy. So there was a lot more game playing, and pinball went the same way, where the size of the productions, as they increased, we were working on so many things, we didn't sit and play as much of the game, because the games evolved to be so big, we had so much to work on. So that was really a big change. And again, how refined the games get has a lot to do with with playing them a lot, and as a player going, God, I wish it didn't do that. God, this doesn't feel balanced. We need to change that. My image seems to be dropping in and out. Is the audio staying constant? Again, let me know in the feedback. Jeff Minter, I know the name. I never met Jeff, and I don't know Jeff. I do recognize the name. Did you dislike Stargate as much as Defender? Somebody commented that Dane just looped, so he hit a 256 wave. I'm gonna take a quick look. Gotta pull up my secret. One thing I'm doing to be able to look at the screens, I have in different web tabs the 4 different dedicated Twitch feeds of the 4 players, so that I can just pop them up and see who's doing what. And Dane's already at wave 10, so it's hard to tell. What does he have? He's got about 29.8, it looks like, for Dane. Let's see how he's doing next to Greg. Oh, I can't read that number. Greg might be right at 30. I'm guessing Greg's a little over Dane right now. Looking at Ken. Ken is at 37.2. And David is at 37.8, still holding his recent lead. Okay, let's go back to get out of that window, back in the Skype window. I'm actually running Windows on a Mac, so I've got Mac Windows and Windows, and Windows works better with the Skype feed from Twin Galaxies, so I'm doing that. All right, I don't want to be there either. Let's go here where I can read the chat again. Okay, thank you for the Addams Family fandom. Very good, everybody's telling me the audio is good. Justin Robotron, would really like to add a Sinistar and a Defender in. It's really cool where collectors try and have a theme to their collection. Some guys did 2-level playfields from Williams. Some guys do the Williams videos. Some guys would probably do robot videos. There are guys that try to do the really weird, awful, bizarre stuff. And it's just really neat when somebody grabs onto an angle of, I'm going to highlight this is my collection, and then gets, passionate and on a I'm labeled, I think, say 2084 at Robotron. And it was going out as 2084, small Robotron. And Steve Ritchie was really just on a rampage. You guys are blowing it. Who wants to call a game 2084? Who can remember? Who can say it? Who can whatever? And internally, everybody started calling it Robotron. And it's really exciting when a new game gets finished and we're getting ready to build prototypes and put them on test. And so just we're talking about, the game, this, Robotron, that, and nobody's calling it 2084. And at some point, I think Eugene made the call, let's make the change. And there was a bunch of money that had to be spent to redo the artwork and get new marquees printed. But that left me with a really nice collector's item with my 2084 marquee. And the rest is history. It became Robotron from there. I can repeat the URL. It looks like somebody missed it. Let's try it again. files.ledgaming.com/files/2084-marquee marquee.jpg. So first one to get that up there, let me know that it really worked. Yeah, there's Moobot's yelling at somebody else who tried to post it. Okay, thank you, Moobot. I'm really happy you're here. There's a question about our Skype connection, and then I lost Eugene, and then I decided that that lunch was a good idea at the time. Hang on a moment, I'm sorry. Scrolling by. What's the story on the decision on the title 2084 Robotron? Okay. We'll come back to programming and answer the question. I tried to post a URL where I actually had the marquee from the original 2084 game. And Eugene named the game 2084, and Steve Ritchie, as Markov mentioned, is the person that coined the Robotron name. And Steve was on us, really, and Steve doesn't keep his opinions to himself. Steve he's a very forceful guy, and he picked the name Robotron. He loved it. He was all over us. 2084 is stupid, and so we ended up making it 2084 and then kind of a subtitle Robotron, and that was the production name of the game until the last minute. So marquees were made up, and I actually uploaded a picture to a marquee, and unfortunately, the Moobot in this chat room wouldn't, it killed my message saying no URLs. I then typed a cryptic version that I thought would fool Moobot, and that ended up 300,000 was a great game for our crew at that setting. But then you get really used to playing it on 10 and you dial it back to 5 and you're Superman. So I'm wondering if any of these guys do that. Let's see. I've got to look at the chat and see if there are any questions from anybody. I would love to answer any questions if anybody has it. And somebody's commented, Greg used to train at 10 a few times. Hard to ask questions about arcade games like this, as most of the tips and tricks were kept secret. I'm not sure that's so true. One thing is these games flourished before there was an internet. So the sharing of information wasn't as prevalent as it is today. But I think there was an underground player community, and they found tips and secrets, and it did somehow spread. I think we used carrier pigeon when we found a new trick. We tied to a pigeon and send it out to the rest of the community. Which reminds me, when I was on with Eugene earlier, somebody asked about our how we got started with computers, how we got started into programming and into games. And Eugene got a chance to answer, and I think we lost it not appearing in the scroll. So it is at files.ledgaming.com/files/2084-marquee.jpg. So that's files.ledgaming.com/files/2084-marquee.jpg. First one who can type it in and get the marquee up, let me know that I said it right and that worked. So as someone, there is this group that the people who are dialed into Defender and Robotron and some of the other Williams games that Markov created on Facebook. It's called Williams Defender Players Unite. It is a private group on Facebook. You'll have to submit, a request to join the group, and Markov administers the group and will let people that are part of this community in. I've posted the picture of the marquee there. And again, if that URL that I chatted off works for anybody, just let me know, and you guys can see it there, and maybe we can get the Twin Galaxy guys to post it or put it up or add it to the artwork in the frame. That would kind of look neat. So the marquee was made, and the ROM labels, as somebody in the chat pointed out, actually was power-ups, and it was, power-ups are really standard in games now. They were just occurring, on the edge. I'm trying to think of a game before Robotron that had them. There probably was. It was a pretty new thing. But it wasn't in our playbook at the time. And Robotron was done on a really compressed schedule. I think Eugene figured the whole thing start to finish was 6 months, which is pretty fast. I've gone on in these discussions about how our tools were so crude that we were able to do so little work in any given unit at a time. And that was also with hardware that didn't work so well, and we were bringing up the blitter chips that were in Robotron, which were really a first. Those were being brought up on wire wrap boards that were buggy as hell, and so getting all of the gameplay, the enemies, the interaction, the pacing, the balance, getting that all in really, was critical, and putting in other gimmicky features, which, given what I see and what we've seen over time, I'm grateful that